Welcome to Work Your Wednesday in our 90-day Accelerate program. Today, we're going to talk about Creative Studio, a little bit of a deeper dive. So this is part 2. My name is Laura Perez Freitas, and I am on the training and coaching team. And I'm super excited to do this with you today. So Molly, who joined us last week, unfortunately is not able to join today, but was incredible in creating some awesome slides for us and content. So we'll work on this together. Okay. Let's jump in. So, as you're already using with your good mornings, which I so appreciate, use the chat as much as you can. I hear that, Ellen. That's perfect. And I will stop as we go along and make sure that we cover all those questions. Okay. So let's jump in talking about Creative Studio today. If this will work. Our agenda. We're going to talk about farming with a digital buyer presentation postcard. So I'll go through that process utilizing QR codes, creating some content in that space so you can kind of see the information that we're going to create on a postcard for a potential farming area. So in addition to that, we're going to talk a little bit about open house and using a bio sheet as a way to engage and get more information to those buyers as they come in, and having that readily available at an open house. I think it's a great takeaway for you to have in place of, just the MLS sheet, but really just something they can take away about you, which I think is impactful. And then social media. So just talking about buyer-centric posts and how to utilize Creative Studio to create those pieces for you. Okay. So first, we're going to talk a little bit about farming. And, I'm sure we're all pretty proficient in the understanding of farming. Usually those are areas where we're talking about sending mailers, postcards, letters, things like that into an area that you're not already have a ton of clients in that space. So maybe an area you're trying to get more business, an area you want to be a master in, and so on. So you create a farming plan with consistency being key. So it's a conversation for another day. But we'll talk about creating a postcard that's a little bit buyer centric, similar to the one that you see on the screen. And we'll show you how to add a QR code to the digital buyer presentation, which is totally my jam. We talked about that a few weeks ago. Definitely watch that recording if you haven't. And you're going to talk about customizing your contact info, using potentially blank pages to get super creative. I personally feel there's a ton of good templates in here that we can use. I would love for you to feel like a master where you can use blank pages and move on to that. But right now, let's use the templates that we have at hand and figure out how to customize them as we go. So I also want to talk about finalizing your order, using that through Express Docs and executing and sending that out. But in addition to that, how to add a co-lister and making sure that we can update their headshot, and talk about how to add a lender to that as well. Okay. So perfect. Good morning, everybody. So I'm going to click now to the demo. So I'll take us right to Creative Studio, which again is on platform. So to conserve time, I've already logged us in here, but you access Creative Studio through platform. I say this all the time, but I work smart and not hard. So I will search that in this search bar right below the platform sign, and it'll open up my window to Creative Studio. And this is my Creative Studio dashboard. Okay. So any projects that I had already been working on, those will all be up here. I can do view all projects here. I can start a new project, which would be a blank project here. But most often than not, we're going to go to a template. That's kind of what I suggested already. Well, again, I would love for you all to become masters of this tool, and we're working towards that. I would love for you to utilize the templates at hand because I think it's just a great starting piece. Okay. Perfect. So on the left side, I'm going to choose a postcard because that's what we said we're going to work on today, creating a potential farming postcard to maybe get more buyers, utilizing the digital buyer presentation. So we will talk through that as well. So I can select postcards on the left side. This again is where I have all of my options for the type of templates that I want to use, whether that be social, postcard, and we'll go through all those pieces. So on the left side, I'm going to scroll down and I can choose categories. So, if I'm doing a postcard for a listing, I'm obviously going to choose one of those: single listing, multi-listing, whatnot. Something I want to highlight because just as a reminder, and we'll talk about this in the social media section as well, but all the monthly mailers that we have. So if you're on the monthly mailer program, or just see the emails when they come through marketing and think that's an interesting piece, but maybe haven't decided to commit to that program and send cards to your sphere automatically once a month, you can actually access that collateral in here. So once that is actually sent out by the company, they load this into Creative Studio so you can then use it on your own if you'd like. So that's something to think about as well, which is why that monthly mailer option is there. So I'm going to select agent branding because I'm not doing a listing postcard. I'm going to do something a little bit more about me, essentially. So I'm going to go ahead and click on one of those. You know, any of these will do for what we're trying to accomplish. And I'm thinking more of I want a direct postcard, have a little text on the front of it, add a QR code. Maybe I'll swap out the photo, maybe not. So I'm thinking this might be good. Obviously, either of these two are very similar. So I can select this postcard to make it larger to see if this is really what I want to use. So this gives me an option to add my logo, have a headline there, add a little bit of text on the back. I also have, again, more storytelling and potentially whatever I'm trying to communicate. I have the option to add that there as well. So I like this one. So I'm going to go ahead and use template to go ahead and create this DBP farming postcard. And so this is really for you. Again, I say that often. I'm talking to future Laura because Laura in 2 weeks may not remember what this project was for. So DBP farming postcard. So I'm going to give myself a little bit of information. So when I come back to look at this project, I know what it's for. So I'm going to go ahead and create document. And it's going to take me over to now the tool where I can start inputting and adding all the detail of the postcard and what I want on there. Okay. So at the top here, my logo should have fed over. I'm hoping that it did. And if not, we can always add it. I think success. No. Okay. Well, I can add that easily by looking in this space. And we talked about this last week when we met, but I just wanted to go over some of these pieces again. Obviously, if you weren't able to join us, but I also think repetition is key in any type of learning. So if I select the front of this postcard, can you see the yellow image border kind of that comes up in this lock sign? This is just showing you that this portion is pretty templated, but we can edit it, meaning I will be able to come in and edit the text. I can edit the header. I can edit the photo as well, which we'll talk through in a second. So I just wanted to show you that that's something that we have accessible. So personally, since I don't have a logo added, it didn't feed in my logo here. And that's solely because we do have a coaching and training logo, but I didn't add it as a logo. I just added it as an image, which I will show you how to put on here if you happen to have done the same thing. Okay. So one, I am going to add this headline. So maybe the headline is looking to buy. I do have a sample that we'll send afterwards. I think for the sake of time, I just kind of want to run through this and it won't be perfect. We'll try to get all the grammatical errors out, but looking to buy, let's make that a question. So I have that there, whatever text I want as a subtitle. And then I'll have some text in here. I know I use this cheat sheet and I talk about it with agents often, but I might utilize ChatGPT for that. So I'm happy to show you that in a second. So I'll add some text here and whatever communication I want for this buyer's centric focused postcard. Okay. So I have the title, I have that. Maybe I don't want to use this photo. It's just not appealing to me. So I have the options to, I can click inside. If I double click the photo, it lets me know that this is something that I can completely change. And I've mentioned this before, but when I'm working on a project, the left side of the page gives me direction on things I can add to my project. And on the right side, and this is just me breaking it down, on the right side is where I can edit what I've already placed on the project. So I think that's kind of a nice and easy way to see the dissection of it. Okay. So I am going to swap out this photo because maybe this photo doesn't speak to me for whatever reason. So I am going to go on the left side and I have stock images. So again, if I had a photo specifically that I wanted to add that I had saved and maybe I use a consistent branding photo on some of my mailers and that's what I wanted to load here, I could go to my images and that was probably loaded here already for me to use. Again, I've used things consistently. Like this image is actually quite nice for this postcard, so I might add that. Or what I'd like to show you is that you have options for using stock images that we have loaded and or utilized with Blink or iStock, which are two programs that you can get stock images from. So I'm going to select stock images so I can look through these. And this gives me the option to, search for whatever I want. So maybe it is luxury interior. Okay, so I'll search that. Boom. So it's going to give me options for luxury interiors that may speak to me again. Maybe since this is open, maybe I'm doing Chicago skyline. Perfect. And it'll give me a ton of options that I can place into this space. So just like most other scrapbooking programs and things like that, it's really easy just to drag and drop the photo right in there. So maybe I grab this guy, I'll grab it over and I'll drop it right into this. I lied. Okay. Into this photo space. I love when technology doesn't work. It's so great. Let me do it this way. I can change this image if I'd like to one that I have. So I'll change it to this. I actually really like this image, so it's very inviting. So I like the skyline. So I've swapped out the image in the way that I want it. I want to stop only because it's a photo question in the chat here. Lisa asked a great question about, do you want to put your own photos or does it have to be stock images? You can add your own photos, which I just did there. So when I selected actually this photo, I can double click or I can see the image on the right side. I have the options to go ahead and change any of the photos, maybe that I have already uploaded. So that was one that I had uploaded in here that I can swap out because I have that here and all I did was select it. But if I had one maybe saved to my desktop, again, something that I use frequently, or maybe a branding piece of my own, or maybe it's my image, right? A lifestyle image that I wanted to use on this postcard, maybe outside of my typical headshot. I could use that. I could select that by adding upload and it would access my desktop and I can add whatever image I wanted there. Okay. So yes, we have the customization available throughout. So in addition to that, I want to add my logo here. And again, I have my logo added as a photo, whereas on your end, I would love for you to add that as your logo. So it would be input in that logo section in the future. But I'm going to scroll down and go to my images to where I can then go and find my logo, which we do have a training and coaching logo. And so I want to double click that. So I'll redo that again so you can see that. So I double clicked it and it came onto my project, right? Where I can then move this. We talk about logos all the time, but as you know, it needs to be same size or smaller as that properties. Don't want it to be confusing for the consumer. So maybe I change it to that size. That seems about right. And I leave that at the top there. My text here is the way that I want it. I would write something really impeccable here, like I mentioned, to draw people to want to work with me. And my thought is maybe I want to have a QR code to my digital buyer presentation on the front of this piece because I think that would really bring people in. And I'm going to show you how to do that. Okay. So, again, for the sake of time, I went directly to the digital buyer presentation tab. I have that open. And I also have the QR code generator tab also available on platform open for us to use. Okay. But again, I could search those here on my platform. I would do DBP or DLP. Both of those are going to take me to the same space. So it would take me right here to my dashboard. Okay. And these are all of my digital presentations that I've created. So I have digital buyer presentations. I have digital listing presentations. So we did talk about this again in a prior workshop, but I would love for you to take the time. If you do not have a listing presentation to do today and tomorrow, if you do not have a buyer presentation to do today and tomorrow, I would love for you to come into the DLP and the DBP and create a generic presentation so that one, if and when you are called to do a presentation, you have this base and this structure for you to use. But in addition to that, we can have a generic buyer presentation and or digital listing presentation that I can use on this piece at hand. So it doesn't have to be specific to a buyer or specific to a potential seller for me to use it. This is where I'm going to come in and I've created a test for myself, a digital buyer presentation. And all I have to do is come in and grab this link. so that I can then create a QR code that I'll put on this postcard. Okay. So here I can go in and do the preview because the preview version is just where I'm going to find the link that I need to create the QR code. So if you haven't seen the digital buyer presentation, pretty good stuff. So again, create this for yourself and add this in there. All I'm going to do is grab this link at the top. So I'm going to Control C or highlight and copy, whatever is easier for you. And then I'm going to go to platform and go to the QR code generator, again, which is on platform. We have the ability to create QR codes, and I'm going to create it myself. So I'm going to, in the URL section, I'm just going to copy that URL, that website that I just created my digital buyer presentation on. And then I'm also going to name it. So again, if we're going to use this consistently on different pieces, because I would also like us maybe to use the same QR code on the bio flyer we're going to create in a minute. I would want to make sure that I label this so I can use it again and again. So it will live in my dashboard and I can grab that same QR code and use it on whatever piece I wanted, especially again, if I, curated it in the way that I wanted to distribute it for a more generic piece. So I'm going to do generate, and I'm going to go ahead and make this a PNG and download. Perfect. I'm going to open this QR code and I am going to name it on my desktop so that I know what it is later. And for these purposes, go ahead and save this real quick. QR generic DBP, save. Perfect. So now I've created my QR code. I'm kind of done for the time being. To look at that again. But as you can see, where the target is, I have the name of what this QR code is. And if I wanted to come back again 2 weeks later, Laura needs the same QR code, I can come right in here and I could download this in whatever format was best. Okay, so it lives in here, which is really nice. So I'm going to close that because I don't need that open for the time being. And I have my DBP, which I, again, no longer need. So I'm going to close that tab. And I'm going back to my project so I can add a QR code to the front of this postcard. Okay. So, and I will just tell you, we talked about this last time, but we have the ability to add QR codes right in our tool. But because, again, this is a QR code that I can expect to use again and again, I really want that in my QR code generator platform. So it's easier access, right? I wouldn't have to log into Creative Studio next time, go find it, and so on. Okay. So here I'm going to go to my images and I'm going to upload this QR code so that I can use it on this piece. So my images, I'm going to upload image and go find the QR code I just created, which is QR generic DBP. I'm going to go ahead and open that and load this to my tool. Okay, and it's right up here. I then can, just like I added my logo, and I want to show you this too as we're hovering over it. When I hover over the QR code, because this is a tricky question, when I hover over it, it gives me the title of that image that I've saved, right? And that's important because I have more than one QR code in here. So if I hover over this, I didn't name that. So I know that's not the one that I'm looking for. You can get into the habit of deleting those if you'd like, just for ease of use on your end. But I feel I can just be able to highlight over and it'll give me what I need. So I'm going to go and double click this and it'll bring this onto the base of the postcard. And I will size this as I see appropriate. So make that a little bit smaller. I think this sounds pretty fun because in my text, maybe I'm looking to buy, maybe in my text, I write something of the sort of, click on the QR code to find out more of what I do for you as a buyer agent. And then let's scroll to the back. So the front of the card, again, for the sake of time, I'm not going to write out all this text, but we would have all that the way that we liked it. On the back of the card, again, I have the opportunity to write a little bit more detail. Maybe I go into detail about me a little bit, right? As as your neighbor, as someone who sells a lot in this area, maybe articulate some stats here. I have the ability to do that kind of in a text form, which I like the idea of the front being kind of simple and straightforward and the back telling a little bit more of a story. So I think this postcard is really well laid out for what we're trying to accomplish. And so the secondary part is maybe I'm setting this with a co-list. Maybe I'm co-branding these with the lender. I have the accessibility to change this back of the postcard, and I want to scroll down and show you there are no other pages here. So I need to change the format of this postcard to a co-list format. So the way that I do that is over here again, I have the option to select whatever's going on my project. So I'll select pages. And for the back of the card, I'm going to add new page, and it'll give me the option between single agent, which is the one we're looking at, or co-list. So I can select co-list, and now I would, for my purposes, I need to see clearly. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the back of this postcard and just work on the co-list postcard. Okay. So again, for the sake of time, I'm not going to go through each piece of this, but I would then need to upload my co-list's headshot and make sure I have their details to add their name, their title, and all their contact information as well. Okay. And so if you're doing this with a lender, you would need to add their logos and all that, which would be just the same process as adding the images that we did initially with my own logo. Okay. Perfect. So here I have again the front and the back. Let's say again, I've already edited my text. I'm good to go. I've already edited my co-list. Now is when I have the opportunity to go ahead and share if I wanted to, because I want to show you this feature because I think this is really cool. Again, if we're doing a co-list postcard, maybe I do want to send it to my co-lister for review before I go ahead and order these bad boys, right? So I might do share, and I could do a couple different versions. I could share. I thought there was a link here. Public. I don't need to do that then. What I meant to say is that I'm going to go back. What I want to do is go ahead and download this here. So I could download this as a PDF. I could download this as an image. And this is my accessibility and ease that I can forward it to someone else to maybe review. Maybe I'm an assistant, or maybe I'm just, again, doing a just listed postcard for whatever reason to a specific area, and I need to do a co-list, or again, a lender. I would maybe want to send this for them to look at. Okay. So I'm going to go back to editor. Perfect. So, quick question in the chat, which I'm trying to monitor as we go through this as well. How did you get rid of the back of the single postcard? I can show you because in our fancy tool here, we have the back, which is really cool. So I selected the back option and undo. So I'm going back to look at these features. And all I did, Kevin, was actually select the card that I wanted to get rid of. And I press delete on my keyboard, or I believe you can right click. And you can, if we select the entire card, I can right click and I can just delete that. So I deleted that there. So now I only have the two pieces. Okay. Perfect. That's a great point, Emily, that I love that you brought out. You can collaborate with someone, which is impactful. So if it's another App Properties agent, right up here, I have the ability to add a collaborator, and you can type in anyone in the company, and you can actually send this over to them. So you can add them here and you can share, or really cool, you can create a shareable link and you could generate that and copy and paste that into a direct email. Okay. And I would just say maybe copying and pasting that in the link or downloading it again. Truly, if you know the person on the other end is going to either want to print that, which sometimes we do and want to see that better, or just look at that kind of on a bigger screen, you might download it and send it as a PDF. If they're a little tech savvy and are okay with this tool, send it as a link so they can select it. It'll bring them to their creative studio and they can review the whole piece. Okay. Perfect. So now let's say everybody's reviewed it. This postcard looks great. We're ready to go. I am going to go ahead and order prints. And I mean, we can go through this whole process again, but just quickly, because again, I think repetition is super key. I will select the shape. I don't have options on the shape, just to be clear. I selected that on the front end. And I know Molly said this last time, but if we selected the wrong size, unfortunately, we're going to have to start over. So make sure you're mindful of the sizing when you're selecting which template you'd like to use. So I'm going to review my PDF one more time. It'll download this for me. On the postcards, I think for the most part, if we're not using a ton of images and things like that are outside of, something stock that we know for the most part is pretty high res, then you probably don't need to print this. I can look at this right on the screen. It has it in front of me. I can review this postcard when it will load, and see that this looks good. I mean, this might be an opportunity again to double check your grammar, double check your text and all that. But everything else looks great. This, in my opinion, would be a great last time to go ahead and scan this QR code as you're looking at your project before you send it to print. That is my pro tip. I always scan before I send for print because you never know. Even though I thought I selected the right one, maybe I didn't. And we're not able to really see the difference between the QR codes every time. So just reminding you, I mean, you would definitely kick yourself if you got the wrong QR code on there. Okay. So making sure that we update that. So I'm going to go ahead and close this out because now I'm going to add to cart. So it takes me over to Express Docs. And if this is the first time going through this tool, Express Docs has always been the platform where we send out postcards. Again, whether you're going through marketing and a designer or doing it yourself, this is always the place that we were executing that. Okay. I have the option to change my order name here, and maybe I dictate, right? Digital buyer presentation or digital DBP postcard, farming, Lakeview, whatever I can to, again, communicate myself with in the future. I can choose which class I'd like to send it. The sides are the same. Excuse me. I can change the glossing and all that, but I don't find much need to change a lot of the pieces in here. The defaults are usually pretty good. And then I will be able to add a separate address list if I needed to, create an address list right through Express Docs, which is great. Or most likely, if this is a farming area that I have been doing consistently or my sphere, I will have that list added here. I will just select it by checking the checkbox next to that list and then go ahead and proceed and check out. And boom, we're done. So we've created a postcard and we've actually executed and sent it out in about 20 minutes. So pretty great. I'm going to go ahead and close this out because I don't need Express Docs open anymore. And I'm going to go back to editor so we can start a new piece. Sounds good? Any questions on the postcard before we move on? Perfect. Great. So our next slide is going to be, I just want to make this a little bit bigger so we can all see it. The next portion we're going to talk about is creating a buyer-centric bio sheet. Okay. So here we're going to go over adding your logo similar to the way that we just did. We're going to edit text to be a little bit more buyer-centric potentially. Adding a QR code link to the digital buyer presentation like we just did. And then thinking about how to utilize this, right? So I would love for this maybe to be a double-sided piece that you have with maybe the MLS sheet on one side and your flyer on the other. I think that would be a great use of this piece for an open house, whether it is your own open house or open house you're covering for. You have the accessibility to market yourself a bit, which is kind of a nice opportunity there. Okay. Melissa, yes, it does save as we go along. Perfect. So I'm going to go back to our Creative Studio tool. So take me back right here. And I have that at the top. So we're still on our postcard. I'm going to go back. I can either select back or actually, where's my home button? I can always select Creative Studio to go back home. And again, all my recent projects are here. So the last project we were just working on is here as well. And it does automatically save. So that was a great question. So as I'm working, it saves as I'm going along, which is, I don't know, I think a gift. So I'm going to look at my templates and look at my flyers that I have accessible to me. So I'll select flyers and I can choose whichever flyer I think might be best for my communication, right? So to break this down a little bit, if I'm a newer agent, maybe this flyer here, I'll make it a little bit larger. This flyer that gives me the option to add recently solds, maybe that doesn't apply to me, right? So I don't have solds to input there. So this flyer is probably not the one I'm going to choose. On the next one, I have the ability to add all my details here. I might have some proven results. Now, as a pro tip reminder, if you are on a team, make sure we're utilizing those team accolades as part of our branding as well, because maybe that's why we joined a team or a part of something bigger than ourselves. So I'd make sure I'd add those tips there. Okay. Maybe I'm just in a space where I don't have a ton of stats again on my own and I'm not on a team. So maybe I could use some of these pieces here to highlight some of app properties, right? So you also have the accessibility to use your brokerage's success. So maybe we are number one in the area that you're hosting this open house. Maybe you have some accolades that you'd like to highlight here. So, I mean, sometimes when you're just starting out, you have to pull in things like publishings you've done before, or 20 years in hospitality, things like that. So we have ways where we can highlight all of the benefits and all of the skill sets that we have in a nice positive way. So choose whichever template speaks to you. I personally like this one probably the best, because I like that it has seller and buyer services here. Those are all things that we've included there for you. Much of them are just included with you being here because they're accessible in platform and all the tools. So I'm going to go ahead and use this template. Okay. So I'm going to do bio flyer, and maybe I label it specifically. Since this is going to be, as you can see, super easy for me to create, I'm going to put bio flyer for open. So I know that this is the flyer that I want to use, create, print, whatever the case, update as things come my way to use for open houses. Okay. And just like all the other pieces, my headshot should feed over. Then I have seller services, buyer services. Again, I think this is a really nice highlight. In here, I have the option to go ahead and change my text, which I will add my bio. Now, this flyer is designated as a bio flyer, but maybe there's another text that I want to put in there. Maybe there's a promise I want to make as a buyer agent. Maybe it's not maybe my bio on my agent site or my Google business page. Maybe it's something specific that I want to articulate for that opportunity. I have the ability to put really whatever text I want here. So that's just a quick reminder on that. Okay. So here I can go ahead and come inside of the text box. And again, you see how it's a yellow space. So letting me know text has to go here. That's the goal. So I can go in and select all of this and maybe delete the text if I wanted to, and start from scratch, which I will do for the purpose of us going through this. Boom. And I actually pulled up Amy Core's profile because that's an easy way for me to grab a bio. So maybe I just want to show you how easy it is if you don't have your bio handy. Maybe you just look up your agent site on appproperties.com and go grab whatever you had selected there because it does not currently feed. Don't worry, that's put that in the suggestion box. So I'm going to go grab the 2 paragraphs of the text that maybe I want to include in the space. Again, maybe in Word, maybe ChatGPT helped you write a nice message. Whatever it is, text that you want to put in the space, you can. Okay. So I'm going to go back to my bio flyer, and I'm going to go ahead and paste this text into that box. I will just say that out loud. It looks a little funky in here, but when we see the PDF, we'll see that the text is really well laid out and it's all the same text and same font. Okay. So I have that in here. Maybe again, there's some additional text I want to add for proven results. These are great stats. So hopefully you can share in these stats. And if not, maybe there's some things that I want to add here that are, again, more at properties driven, right? And that's the platform I'm going to position myself for the time being. I will just give you a little cheat sheet on that. If I go into pull up either a digital listing presentation or a digital buyer presentation, I have a ton of accolades right in there. So, that we are, I don't remember the revenue from last year, but I think something like, $8 billion in sales in 2024 or 2023 rather. I can put that here. So know what those pieces are that you want to add. If you don't know your personal stats and you're not brand new, make sure you reach out to whatever coach you're working with, reach out to coaching and training, your managing broker. We can all help you pull that information. We usually pull that when we're doing fall business planning, which I think is a really impactful time, because, to create goals, we have to know where we're coming from. So I think that's great. And I would love for you to keep track of that. Know what your volume is, know what your average days on market are, because they are impactful as we're talking about adding value to your potential sellers, adding value to your buyers you're working with. These are some things that you can talk about that speak to what differentiates you from potentially your competition. Okay. So I would love for you to know what your stats are. So these are easily editable. I just highlight that and I can do whatever text, 150 million, whatever I want to say there. I can also do transactions. This is a cool conversation. Knowing how many transactions you've done over your lifetime. Again, if it's a substantial number that's super impressive, we love that because you could have, depending on your market, you could have a lower price point, but that doesn't mean you are not doing as much business as potentially your competition or someone that they may be meeting with or whatnot. So showing how many transactions, that is a super impactful number as well. Okay. I love that. Thank you, Corinne, for mentioning that. You can find your volume stats on Zenlist. That's a really good tip there. So on Zenlist, if you're using that platform, again, we talked about that a few weeks ago as well on Accelerate90. That's another space you can do that because they're pulling that directly from MLS, which is a good tip. I can also then have my average days on market and boom. So the only thing I wanted to add here, because a lot of this is templated for us, which is great, is I want to add a QR code. So I want to make sure that it's easily accessible for me to add a QR code to my digital buyer presentation or wherever else I want, right? So maybe it is to my agent site. Maybe it is to a link tree. Maybe you watched our training from a few weeks ago and did a QR code for your at opens and it goes directly to a sign-in sheet or maybe an intake form that you've created with a Google form or something of the sort. So really the options are endless, but the functionality, I will show you how easy it is to add. Okay. So again, let's say I created that same QR code from QR code generator, which is over here on my other side of platform. I'm going to go back to my tool and I could again create a QR code right in here, which is a nice option. Name it, copy and paste the URL and add it to this project. Or maybe it is that DBP QR code that I have already created and loaded into here. So I'm going to go to my images and I have that here again, right? Hover over it so it tells me what that title is. If I saved a title, I will just double click that. Now it comes onto my project. I can resize that and I would just add that somewhere here. Okay. Boom. So maybe I want to add that over here for time's sake. So great. I think this bio flyer is exactly the way that I want it. I have all my services. I've added my accolades and stats that I want to include here. I think it's great. So I'm going to go ahead and download it. And we have to choose whichever format we want to download. I'd probably do PDF print for the sake of maybe sending this to the front desk to print in color, or maybe I'm at home and print it in color myself. I can go ahead and download that, press next, and I would download the PDF, send that for print, and use that. Okay. The other thing that I mentioned in the beginning of this is utilizing it potentially on the second half of an MLS sheet. So that would just be me double-siding my print when I maybe send that to the front desk or again, print that myself. Okay. Perfect. So we went through our bio flyer, we went through our postcards, super fast and easy. I have a question in the chat. Can you import the PDF of a listing sheet into Creative Studio so that it's combined? I guess you could, but because Creative Studio typically works in images, we would have to create the PDF, convert it to an image, and then load it in that space. I would probably suggest you again just downloading it, and you can attach them if you have PDF editor. You can combine PDF docs that way, or just send it. And when you send it to print, you would just double side that. So, I mean, that's what I would suggest. Okay, perfect. So I'm going to go back and bring us back to the dashboard of our Creative Studio, where again, all my projects live. So my last flyer should be here. If I select out of this, I can always select Creative Studio to go home. So that last bio flyer I was working on, this one directly for open houses because I communicated with myself, is here. And then I have the DBP farming postcard that I worked on already this morning here as well. Awesome. So I'm going to go back to our presentation to remind us of what we're going to do next. Present this, and we're going to talk a little bit about social media. So let's talk about customizing social media posts. We have a ton of templates in Creative Studio that I'd love for us to look at first. And all the monthly mailers, as I mentioned before, not only are added as monthly mailer postcards for you to use as a template and share, they're also used as a social media post, which I think is impactful because it's just a connecting of the dots. Okay. So if you are sending monthly mailer postcards to your sphere, and then you couple that with also posting the social media post, that is same aesthetically as the postcard they received in their mailbox. It's just a connective piece. And as I talk to agents all the time that are a little bit confused on what to post, we just gave you an idea to post. So at least one post a month you already have down. So utilize these for sure. I want to show you how to add a headshot, add your logo, and talk to you about the different sizes that you use for social media. Okay, perfect. Then we will go back to Creative Studio, and I'm going to select templates again to go through the different type of social media pieces that I can choose from. So I'm going to select social media, and it'll bring me right over here. And there's a plethora of pieces. So this one, attract a crowd ahead of the curve. These are both, I can just tell you from experience, these were both monthly mailer content. So meaning if you were signed up for that program, your sphere was getting this postcard, and now I can use this to create my own. Okay, so attract a crowd. Maybe I want to select this piece. So it has both sizes here. Boom, love that. I can use this if I'd like. Let's look at some other ones just to see what our options are. Okay, I like dress to thrill. I think that's fun. We can add a headline here. Maybe because I used the postcard initially for the digital buyer farming postcard we created, maybe I want to use something like that. I could bring over the same heading potentially. I could bring over the same text, and maybe I needed to minimize that a little bit, but I could use this in a way and again create that branding consistency throughout, because then I would just swap out this image in the back. Okay, so I'm going to use this template. So let's say I'm doing DBP template. I'll label it, right? So it makes sense to me later. Great document. So now it'll come over, and this is where I'm going to show you how to add your logo if you wanted to, add your headshot, whatever text you wanted. Okay. So this is a square. So we won't go too in depth into social media and its habits and skills, but I will say this is a square. So this is typically Instagram. This more rectangular is more Facebook usually, and this is a story. Okay. And that story can be on Instagram or Facebook. So either one, the sizing is the same. So I'll select the square piece, make that larger for us to look at. So I'm going to go in here and do whatever text I wanted. Say what I did before, ready to buy. I would maybe change this text to, call text me today, whatever that was. Again, I use ChatGPT for a ton, so please do not hesitate to use that at all. Especially when you have this great idea and we just kind of like throw it out there and then say, oh, but it has to be in one sentence. Okay. So that's a really nice way to convert that in the way that you want it to. So here, I also want to add my headshot because I want to have consistent branding. I also want to add my logo. Okay. So I can do that again on the left side. I'm going to go grab my images. I'm going to scroll down and grab my headshot. So maybe I just want to put that somewhere on this piece. I think I look good right there. That's great. And then I also want to add my logo as well. So my coaching and training logo. I'm going to grab that. I just double clicked it like we talked about before, and now I have it on this space. So I can go ahead and bring that over here. Maybe that's a good space for it, or maybe I want to put this at the top, wherever I see fit, right? So this is a good opportunity to put that there. Boom. I also have the option, and I will just say this out loud because I think you might be seeing this more consistently as well. I could add my phone number onto this post. I could add my email address. I could add my contact information if I wanted to. So while we just added images really easily, I can also add text. So on the left side, I can select text, and I will just maybe select whichever type of text I would like, even though we can change the sizing after we choose it, to be clear. I'll just go ahead and select that. And now I have this little text box that I might be able to bring down. Oh, my screen is so small. Okay, I'm going to undo that real quick. My little text box and bring that down. And then maybe this is where I want to put, I can go ahead and put my name, make that a little bit larger so we can actually see it. And sometimes I will personally make this box larger as I'm texting and typing in it, and then make it smaller to the right size when I'm ready to place it in the right spot. Because my eyes, I tell you. So we have the text right in there. Like we mentioned before, we have some options to change things on the right side. So as I've selected this text box, I can actually go here and make the text box white so that maybe I want to add all my text and then I have kind of like a little border or a little column that I have next to my name, as opposed to overlaying the text on an image that I won't be able to really see it. Okay. And if I select into this text box, I'm going to select all. I can change the sizing, make this text larger. Perfect. Spell my name correctly. That would be helpful. Good question, Connie. So there's a question in the chat to ask us if we can change um, the headshot that you have loaded into Creative Studio, to remove the background. And I don't know if Emily Jungles is still in here because she was working on that last time. I think this is the one. Let's select that. This, and then, no, it just changes the whole image. I don't think we can do that here. Right? Am I wrong? Emily, Jungles, if you're still on, can you chime in? Because I remember we were trying to troubleshoot that last time because as we mentioned, we talked about it needed to be a PNG. Got it. Perfect. So if it is a PNG, which I'm assuming my headshot is not, it's a JPEG, you can change the transparency on the back of it using, I think it's this tool right here. Okay. And so if you needed help with that, by all means, you could definitely reach out to marketing and they would be able to change the transparency on the back of your image and just kind of have you as like a cutout. You could do that as well. And that would be something to load in here. So you can think about if that's something that you want to use. I would say personally, this overlay of my image, I'm not super deterred by, so I'm totally okay with using that. And then putting the text box here to go ahead and post. Okay. And so I'm going to go ahead and talk about sharing. Again, I could download this in that space if I wanted to. Yes, Camille, 100%. You can put your headshot in Canva and remove the background. If you have Pro, you can remove the background there and then re-upload it to Creative Studio, 100%. You can do that as well. So that is a good tip. Canva, which will not be named. So we can definitely use that as well. So I can go ahead and download this as an image if I wanted to, or I'll go back to editor and I have the accessibility to I have the accessibility to go ahead and share right from here. So I can share that directly to my Facebook, directly to my Instagram personal or Instagram business. It gives you the option there solely because Meta, which is Instagram and Facebook, they have some specifications on how you can share things based on the type of profile. So you get to choose which one it is. Okay, perfect. So I would just select share. And then just as a reminder, and I know sometimes this gets a little confusing, whatever whatever social media platform you are logged in on the device you're working on is where this is going to load to. And I say that solely because we may have different logins for our social media business or social media personal. You may not have them connected, which happens sometimes. And maybe I wouldn't be kidding, but maybe someone, a friend, a family member logged into their social media on maybe your laptop that day. So just as a reminder, if it comes over and it has someone else's face at the top there, it might just be because someone else is logged into that. So then I would potentially open up a separate window. This is a little advanced session. I'd open up a separate window and see what profile you were logged in to that social media. Okay. And obviously you could just swap that from there. So that's just as a reminder. And again, sometimes we are maybe working in a partnership or working as an assistant. And if we're logged into our own by mistake, it will go to our profile and not someone else's. Can you show us how to change the image? Oh, perfect. Yes, Melissa, great question. So in the image here, let me delete this text real quick because I did a double box there. So if I want to change the image in the background, I've selected it now. So prior to that, I was seeing, if you see me clicking here, you can see this blue kind of outline. I'm just selecting that frame essentially. If I go to the top, I can actually select this image itself and then I can double click it and it'll take me over to my images where I can swap that out. So maybe I want a full image. Maybe I want to do this Chicago skyline. So I could do that from there. Did we follow along with that? So essentially, like this is the border, right? So it's highlighting the entire piece. And you could just see what it's highlighting there by the blue with the square boxes that it shows you. And then here, I'm actually selecting the entire image. So I can select the entire image, and if I double click, it'll give me all of my image options as well. And this is where I can do stock images, okay? I do have access outside of me pulling from the left side of my project tools. I also have that when I'm in my image manager. I can search Bing, I can search Upsplash. If I had other integrations, not right now, I would have access to that there. Or again, my images. So if there's a consistent branding I'm creating, or maybe it's a team photo that I'm using for this specific post, I can access it that there. Okay. So I like this photo is kind of cool. So go ahead and change that photo. Oh, well, that looks kind of cool, guys. Perfect. So I can change that there. Make sense? Awesome. So then I would go ahead and share like we talked about. I'm going to go back because we have created 3 different pieces while we are meeting together. I'm going to go back to my presentation to make sure that I remind you of all of your next steps. Let me see the chat. Where did you get those images from? Let's look at that. So I didn't close out my project, so I can look at that here together. So I'm not sure which images you're referring to, but I could either upload images that I've saved myself. Again, I have some agents that do maybe a particular Buckingham Fountain image that they use consistently on some of their branding, or they use, a particular building that they sell predominantly. So they use that image pretty consistently. So I would have uploaded that into my images. Okay. So I'm going to go back home for a second so I can show you exactly what your question is pertaining to. So I'm going to select back on this last social media post we were on. Again, that's all on my dashboard, easily accessible in my last projects. So if I select right in the on the right image to go ahead and change it, it'll give me access to all of the images that I have uploaded already. So this was something that I've uploaded on my own. Some things that I've already saved in my tools. These are all things because I use this tool pretty consistently that I have lots of different images in here. Okay. If I wanted to have something saved already on my desktop that I wanted to add to this project that I haven't put in Creative Studio yet, I can go ahead and select upload and go and pull that from wherever I had that saved. Okay. And then lastly, I have the option to add stock images if I don't have one in mind, but maybe I just don't like the one that's on the template. Okay. So I can do that by going to Bing or Upsplash, and I have a search. So I can do interior property, whatever the case. Interior property, something like that. Maybe this is the image that I like more. Okay. So I would just double click that. Now it's loaded to my images technically in my image manager. And now I can put that right on my piece. Okay. So there's lots of different options there. One, it's already saved. One, you have it on a device that you're working on. And 2, you want to go find a stock image. Okay. Perfect. Awesome. So I'm going to go back to our presentation and get us all wrapped up. So we've done our 3 pieces, and now we're going to just talk about next steps. What are the next steps? Now you can create your own. That's the goal here. So if you're a postcard agent and you like to farm, create a buyer postcard. Use the QR code to connect to a digital buyer presentation and send that out. Talk about your value, have them go directly to your digital buyer presentation, connect those dots for the people that you're farming to. Maybe you're an open house agent and we want to explore how to, create more business hosting open houses. So use a bio sheet. Make sure that they have something to take away that maybe is not just your business card. Okay. And lastly, if you're a social media agent and or you feel like this is where you want to explore and expand some of your business more and just be a little bit more intentional, utilize these social media tools and these templates to create more posts on social media. Perfect. So you have your homework essentially. And if you have any questions, as always, reach out to our team. And we're happy to help you kind of navigate these. As well as I would love to remind you, Creative Studio doesn't typically replace marketing and your designers. If that is your typical course of action, please use them. But I think, again, the benefit of Creative Studio is the ease of which we can create these pieces, some consistency you can create for yourself, and you have the freedom to work on this whenever you want. And in a matter of, 50 minutes or so, we've created 3 pieces essentially that we can use on all the different platforms that we're trying to market ourselves on. So just as a reminder that you just have access to that. Okay. Any more questions that are in the chat? My pleasure, Yvette. I hope you enjoyed this, and thank you. Oh, I can't wait for you to dig in either, Nancy. That's so great. So if you have any questions, let us know. But if not, I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye, everybody.